Dr. Narda here, back with another video. And in this video, we're going to talk about, well, developing your own instrument. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Is it a bad idea? We're going to find out. So, first thing I'll tell you is the advantages of using an existing instrument far outweigh making your own instrument. So when you can find an existing instrument, you already have the validity information, you have the reliability information, everything's been done for you. It's often been run multiple times. So when you can get an existing instrument, use an existing instrument. It is the best way to go, because sometimes researchers spend their whole lives trying to create instruments, their whole careers. It's a lot of work to develop your own instrument. I caution against it. Only in rare circumstances. If you're assessing a construct that is brand new, and there's no existing instruments at all, or if the instrument you want costs money and you're doing it for like a class project or something, or if professional qualifications are required, then you can develop one. But I wholeheartedly discourage you from writing your own instrument. Sometimes you have to, though. So you have to develop your own instrument. For example, you might want to use an instrument on some social media, because social media changes so fast. There might be a new type of social media that you want to measure, and maybe an instrument doesn't exist. In my opinion, I would say just find an existing instrument and modify it rather than reinventing the wheel. You can also change wording sometime on instruments, slightly, not too much, because then you change the substance of the instrument. But again, if you have to write your own instrument, I'm going to give you some tips here in this video. One thing I'll also caution you is, so don't use a single item measure. It often doesn't have the reliability or the validity that you are looking for. You want to use an instrument with multiple items. That way it'll have a higher reliability score or a higher Cronbach's alpha. Side note, if you're going to create your own instrument, by the way, you have no idea what your Cronbach alpha is going to be. It could be really, really bad, and you don't want a low Cronbach's alpha. In social sciences, you probably want 0.7 or above, but you don't know what you're going to get, and it's usually a very tough thing to do, to write your own instrument. So again, don't do it if you don't have to. I will tell you, though, if you could write your own demographic and background items, that's not a big deal. Like if you want to say, what is your age? Ask participants to give you their age. If you want to ask them what their race or their ethnicity is, just ask them that. Usually for those, we can give them the categories. If you want to ask them what their gender is, easily you can give them some choices to make, right? Some easy choices to make. Usually demographics questions, go ahead and right away. You can also do open versus closed-ended question. As a researcher, as a quantitative researcher, I usually do closed-end questions. I usually have participants answering on a Likert scale. It's much easier to analyze that data in SPSS or some kind of statistical software. I personally do not like open-ended items, but sometimes you need them in certain situations where your research question calls for that. The other question comes up if you're thinking about Likert scale items is, do you do odd or even Likert scales if you're writing your own? Usually I tell people that work with me to write odd Likert scale questions. That way we can do a forced choice. We make people choose. We don't let them, have a neutral option. We make them agree or disagree on some level. I think you get more rich information out of that. Another word you might want to know when you're writing a research question is STEM, or the STEM. And basically that presents the problem statement or the content of the question. Basically, it frames the material for the respondent. The stem of the question is often very, very hard to write. The other thing you want to do if you're writing your own instrument is you want to do pilot testing. You want to give it to people and let them try it out. And then you can kind of run some of that data and kind of see what your internal validity numbers come up as. You might want to run a mini study before your official study. Again, you have to get IRB approval for all of this. But it's a really good idea to pilot study your new instrument so you could fix problems. Maybe some things were poorly worded, or maybe there's errors in there, or other issues that arise, pilot testing is often highly recommended. And the most widely used, as I mentioned previously, is interval scales. So use those interval scales in your instruments. It's very highly widely used. We use Likert scales 1 through 5, right, or 1 through 7. These gives people a chance to rate things. And you can always take this and turn it into a lower form scale, but you can never go up. Another way people look at research questions is doing content analysis. This is for more of qualitative research, more open-ended questions. And basically you look for themes that emerge out of your free responses, and you try to kind of classify those concepts into specific categories. Often in today's day and age, we will give online surveys. Awesome advantages here that you can give out these surveys to a lot of people. Qualtrics is very expensive. You have to pay for it. SurveyMonkey is a great option. And Google Forms is also a great option to use. Google Forms is free. I think SurveyMonkey offers some limited free options. And then Qualtrics, you have to pay for it. It's very expensive, but usually if you're at a college or university, they will offer that to you. You could also do crowdsourcing to find your participants, like Amazon Turk. You pay people to take your survey, and you can get a lot of people that way. Some disadvantages of online survey is a lot of these systems cost money. You have to pay for them, or Amazon Turk costs money to collect data there using their system. However, you have ease of access. I think here using things like Google Survey or Qualtrics, if you're at a university that supports it, using online surveys far outweighs the disadvantages, because if you're using a regular survey, you have to actually find people and stand outside. And with online surveys, you get such a wider reach. Another great tool that's free is Google Docs. You could use Google Docs or Google Survey to create surveys, as I mentioned earlier. They have options for different types of questions and different types of response formats, and actually automatically save it to a Google Docs spreadsheet, which you can import to Excel, and then you can take that Excel spreadsheet and import it to SPSS or some other program. As I mentioned about a second ago, SPSS is very commonly used. It's a paid program. It's not the cheapest. You can get student discounts. But I would say, hey, go look at Jamovi, which is free. I think that's a great option to SPSS. It's open source, and there's a lot of things you can do with Jamovi. I would recommend going in that direction if your university is not providing you SPSS, or if your professor is not making you use SPSS. One thing I want to emphasize is make sure you take time creating your survey. Make sure it looks good. Bolding the stem is important, so making that question bold. Make sure there's enough spacing. Make sure the look and feel is good, right? You want to be able to look at that thing and say, wow, that looks professional. So take your time in creating your surveys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.